afternoon, everyone. We will reconvene our meeting. And we will, as is scheduled for 1 o'clock, we have a question period that is open and available for an hour and a half. So we welcome questions from anyone who's attending with us today or anyone online. And as has been indicated in our agenda, we're similarly meeting here at 6 o'clock for an hour and a half to take questions either the same way, either online or from people attending. I know there have been some questions brought forward, and I'll just highlight a procedure just so that we try to keep this orderly, which I wouldn't expect it to be anything other, but I guess if it gets out of hand, it's up to us to rein it back in, but I'm not worried about that. So appreciate anyone's attendance this afternoon. But the purpose of question period is to provide the public an opportunity to obtain information from and provide information to council in an efficient and timely manner. Typically, we handle question period at the beginning of our regular meetings every 2 weeks, as per the routine, and we allot up to 30 minutes for those questions, but we have never used that time up to this point in my experience. But we certainly welcome that on a routine basis, and we feel it's we appreciate the exchange with the public, and we certainly want to on a regular basis be available and open to input from the public. That's what our purpose for being here is, to serve our ratepayers, and we appreciate anyone's willingness to come in and ask questions or engage in discussion this afternoon. So, as I said, to maintain decorum, the chair needs to recognize your speech, and anyone who is recognized then has the opportunity. Please state your name and the division that you reside in before your question, and then you have from 3 to 5 minutes to frame your question. That's pretty good time. I know when this council goes to RMA in Edmonton, they have like 45 to 60 seconds, and that's not, then you get shut off. We won't be, we appreciate people's input, so we've got some more time than that, but that's just context. But please keep your questions brief and straight to the point so that you get the information that you're requesting, and we certainly welcome your introduction to provide context for the question. We would suggest, and we want questions to be about either a matter of public interest that falls under the jurisdiction of the County of Newell, the County of Newell Council, or a subcommittee, or a municipal or a para-municipal organization that we are connected to. An action by a member, secondly, an action by a member of the County Council or a council subcommittee to whom the question would be addressed in that case. Or thirdly, the council's intentions regarding a regulatory or administrative measure of the County of Newell or any of its organizations. Questions that may not be answered may include any matter that will be the subject of a bylaw requiring a public hearing or for which a public hearing has already been held, or any matter relating to the promotion of commercial products or services which have no connection to the business of the county. So solicitation is not the point of this time frame. And then any matters subject to disclosure in accordance with the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act or regulations. These may include employment personnel matters, negotiation matters, or land sale or purchase negotiations. Those are simply confidential matters that are not open for question today. But and we ask everyone to be respectful of each other, which almost don't need to say that. I think we take that for granted, and in cases of someone crossing the line, we will be pointing that out. And we're also not, this is not a debate, this is a question period, and members of council may also ask questions back for clarification, but this is not a debate session. So With that, we'll open the floor to questions, and I think that we have also some questions that have been submitted online. But to begin with, is there anyone present here or online who has a question for council this afternoon? Todd, you've got some online. Just one other thing I'll point out. We have allotted an hour and a half for this time frame now, but we also have other business to carry on as part of this council meeting. So we will entertain any questions as they come in the next hour and a half, but we will, if there aren't questions and there's a blank space, we will do some further business to complete our agenda and then check back in. So don't feel you have to ask your question right now if you want to wait. But anyway, that's just for information as well. Todd, go ahead, please.
Perfect. Thank you, Arnold. This question was submitted on the online submittal form. It's from Louise Beasley in the Millicent area. She's asking why the county is spending money on cutting down trees that are not dead along the road in the bar pits in our area. The trees they are spending lots of money on getting rid of are not under power lines. They are old landmarks and stop wind erosion as well. I noticed that more and more trees are disappearing in our area, which causes more and more of our topsoil to disappear. Plus, trees are good for our atmosphere. I believe the manpower and vehicle fuel expense, 3 vehicles with 4 to 6 men being deployed out to cut the trees down, is a waste of our tax dollars. I would rather see them unthawing the culverts, damming up the water in the spillways so when the snow melts, the water can get away from the roads. Go into some of our taxpayers' fields, into a dugout or something similar. Ask taxpayers if they would consider water running from the road ditches into a dugout in their field whenever possible. Plan on saving the live trees, as now with controlled water output in the county, no trees will be replanted off these waterways to stop the wind from blowing the soil away. Work at conserving the snow water, runoff waters, and putting our hard-earned tax dollars to better use.
Okay, thank you for that question, Louise. And I'm going to first of all ask Mark Harbrink, our technical services Director of Municipal Services. Technical. Yeah, that's right. Thank you.
It's all good. In response to that, and council, you're entitled to redirect me in any which way, but the removal of brush from county road ditches is vital for public safety, number one. Brush and trees growing in the road allowance can cause many problems, including reduced visibility of traffic, road signs, vehicles, and of course, wildlife. Additionally, brush and trees can cause excess snow drifting and reduce drainage. Brush is controlled alongside roads to minimize snow drifting, obviously, provide optimum drying and melting of the road surface, unimpeded drainage, and to protect the integrity of our road surfaces. So that's the concise version of why we control vegetation in our road allowances.
Thanks, Mark. Oh, Kelly, do you want to respond? I've got some comments too, but go ahead. I'll go ahead. Yeah. One of the things that was suggested or a concern raised was the fact that there are less and less trees in the area. And I think we, as our irrigation system has become more efficient, we have definitely seen a reduction in trees and shrubs, and some of which were probably supported by seepage in the past that maybe aren't anymore. But I know that we do, and I'd ask Todd maybe to comment on our program that we have to replace and to start trees. You want to comment on that, Todd? Because I think that's a positive initiative that speaks to that, and that we share the concern that was raised in that question, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think it's new, certainly not new for me to plant trees in the county of Newell. We've been doing shelter belt work for a very long time. The one thing that we did start this year was we put in policy to help with the EID programming. So we worked with Dan Buell at the EID to kind of figure out, where we could bolster his programming because he had such a great shelter belt program going. So we're adding some labor supports for now, and then hoping that as time goes on, we can expand his programming. So landowners that are willing and want a shelter belt planted, they can go through the process with Dan to get that on the books. And we're hoping to be very involved in the planting and maintenance for a few years.
Thanks, Todd. Kelly, please.
I just wanted to share an experience that we had on, I guess, the east side of my division. The road allowance was cleaned up, cleared of broken and green debris that was in the way. And then the landowner subsequently did more cleanup as well. So there are positives to the county keeping our road allowances clear, because then there's a spin-off. I do get Mrs. Beasley's point that it does maybe change our focus as landowners, that planting trees is a reality or a real thing that we need to pay attention to going into the future, whether that's through ag services here at the county, the EID, or privately as landowners. I do think we are incumbent to keep the soils in place.
Thanks, Kelly. Mark, you had some more comments?
Yeah, just reading that submitted response. To respond to the unthawing of culverts, we do stop vegetation management control when the season changes, which we're in right now. So tree cutting is not taking place at the same time. With that, there was also the comment about damming up water in the spillways so that snow melts, so that when the snow melts, the water can get away from roads and go into some of the dugouts and stuff. Any diversion of water requires either a temporary diversion license to do that. And if you're going to consume that water, you're also going to be speaking to Alberta Environment and Parks as well about getting licensing to be able to use that water. So we can't just go in and ditch water somewhere else. And likewise, I'd encourage landowners to be familiar with their use of water that's on their property and the requirements of Alberta Environment for such purposes.
Thank you. Anyone else have comments or further questions? Todd, you've got another one?
Yeah, just one. And this first name rate, last name payer. So I hadn't, and I apologize for this because it's my fault. I hadn't put out in the online portion that we would want to see who we're talking to. So, the name and where they're from would be ideal. So Mr. or Mrs. Rate Payer, they just wondered who decides about these useless solar farms.
I'm going to invite Mr. Jeff Tiffin to respond to that. I think that their solar developments are something that have been concerns raised on, and I think, Jeff, you've got some comments on the specifics of that.
Absolutely. So the short answer to the question is who gives approval for these solar farms. That is the Alberta Utilities Commission, or the AUC. They are the regulating body on construction of power plants, construction of power generating facilities, wind, solar, so on and so forth when it comes to renewable energy production. The county is involved. These companies that receive their approval through the Alberta Utilities Commission do still require the benefit of a development permit to construct their operation. At time of a development permit, the county does have the ability to impose some conditions where we see fit that does not interfere with the approval that's been granted by the Utilities Commission. Road use agreements, things like that, access and egress from the sites can be discussed at that time. But realistically, when it gets to the development permit phase, which we require to happen after the Alberta Utilities Commission approval, we are we must grant a development permit approval in line with the approval that's already been granted by the Utilities Commission. So again, back to the short answer is the AUC is the overarching regulator for solar facilities.
Okay, thank you. And Kelly, please.
I'm just going to ask this question because it came to my mind and maybe somebody else has a similar. Is that the same in every county across the province?
Yes, that goes for any renewable energy development province-wide, not specific to the County of Newell, the City of Brooks, the City of Calgary. Any local municipality would not have the approval authority that the Utility Commission does. There is a process that the Utility Commission goes through where they do require the applicant for the development of this type of development to do public consultation, and part of that public consultation does involve communication with the local municipality in charge of development. Local municipalities can be involved in the process. They can be involved in the hearings. They can create policy in their statutory framework, in their land use bylaws surrounding solar farms, and they can ask that the AUC take notice of those policies that are being produced at the local level for the development of these sites. The Alberta Utilities Commission will then take that into account, and they're not required to follow our policies because they are provided a number of policies and oftentimes conflicting. So the Utility Commission's role is to make a determination on an application in the greater good of society.
Okay, thank you, Lynette.
Could we just get a little rundown on who controls the AUC?
The Alberta Utilities Commission is a creature of the province, and they are a provincial governing body.
Okay, thank you. Matt, you've got a comment?
Yeah, just a comment, just so the public is aware, on the renewable energy file, there are active resolutions at the rural municipalities of Alberta that have been passed, of which the County of Newell has provided support. If you go on to RMA's website, you can find these resolutions. The one specifically I'm referring to is 9-22F, and I'll maybe just read it here, and it kind of addresses some of the concerns rural municipalities have with respect to the AUC not being obligated to recognize the statutory plans of local municipalities, so our land use bylaw. They don't have to recognize any of the policy in that document. And there's also a big gap on reclamation liability. So this resolution is specific to reclamation, and it reads as followed. That the RMA requests that the government of Alberta implement a mandated collection of adequate securities for future reclamation of renewable energy projects on private lands, either by requiring renewable energy project proponents to post a reclamation surety bond as a condition of any renewable energy project approvals, or by other means. Further, be it resolved that the amount of the required securities be calculated based on data-driven projections of actual reclamation costs to protect municipalities and residents of Alberta from incurring costs associated with the decommissioning of all renewable energy projects. So we've heard an answer about how the rules are set today and the guidelines. If you don't like the rules, you set out to change them, and that's what the RMA is about currently.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Any other questions? Oh, good. Would you come take a mic? Just introduce yourself and your division, if you would, please. Welcome. Thank you.
Okay, I got a question. The East Tilly Solar.
You are just
Paul
identify.
Pisker from Tilly.
Okay.
Sorry, I forgot that part. But I've been driving by that East Tilly Solar farm there, and it's pathetic. The third of the system isn't even functioning. Like The sun is over here and the panels are facing to the east instead of the west, and they're not moving. And this has been going on for a long time. If we're paying for this, why isn't somebody looking after and making sure things are working there? Because I went to the Hat 2 weeks ago. A third of the place was down. This is not efficient. It's a waste of taxpayers' money, and it's not being controlled by somebody. Somebody should be there monitoring whether things are being fixed. And this has been going on for a long time already, and it's continual. And we're looking at it, having something that's productive. Well, that's non-productive. And I'm not comfortable with all these solar panel fields going in prime property and across the province that I've seen. Good farmland being turned into solar farms when we've got wasteland that could be solar farms. Like there's a lot of prairie that's undevelopable because there's no water source. They could be there, but no, we're taking, like going towards Calgary, you see in Strathmore and all the way to Calgary, solar farms on prime farmland, prime quality land. And so watching this plant is very disturbing because it's so breakdowns continually there. And somebody's not taking control, somebody's not watching what's going on. Part two of my question is this form that come out to talk about reducing the amount of what people can have on their acreages. And I don't see a problem with people having stuff on their acreages. I see a problem like with Murray's feedlot that expanded and you can't even sit outside anymore in Tilly. They expanded over 2/3 bigger than they ever were. Now we got semi-trucks pulling on the road without even paying attention to traffic that's coming. And yesterday morning, I left Tilly and there was clumps of mud this high, frozen on the road. Somebody's gonna get killed. And that's because they pulled out during the night with their semi from the mud, and it was probably 150 feet long. I tried phoning the county office at 8 o'clock till 8:30. I couldn't get in. I just got a busy signal every time. Somebody's got to do something about that because this is all the time. There's always mud on the road, and it's got to be cleaned. That's their responsibility. If they're pulling out semi after semi, they should be making sure there's nothing on that road. And this is what happens when you have big things happening in the county where expansions are happening, and it's just disturbing to everybody around. And I've never seen, when I've seen this, all of a sudden this growth, I've never seen a publicized permit or application in the paper for Murray's expansion. Now, how can they do an expansion without public knowledge? And this is continual. There's always stuff going on there. I got nothing against people expanding and doing things, but when it affects everybody's comfort and enjoyment of their outdoors, that's a bigger problem. Everybody complains about what goes on in Brooks. Well, the smell comes from Martin's feedlot. Everybody blames Lakeside. Well, the smell from Lakeside hardly gets to Brooks. You'd have to have just the perfect wind, but most of the smell comes from Martin's feedlot. And that's been there forever. And these are issues that I feel that are more important than the poor little acreage guy. One cow or one goat or 10 sheep ain't gonna make a smell compared to what you get out of the feedlot. And it'd be much nicer to have a fresh air environment instead. I grew up on a farm. I grew up with cattle, but it never stunk like that because it's a total different feeding process. And they clean the feedlots on a continual basis, but the smell is something to be desired. That's my question.
Some of this
call it the smell of money sometimes, but not always. And I respect your question. I understand what you're saying.
I know there's money in the.
Well, sometimes, and I'm not, the trade-off is without, I mean, sometimes activity creates some side effects, but I think Mark has some comments maybe.
Well, I was gonna first, because the first question was about the solar panels, and I guess that is really, you know, something for council, but really it's the operator of the solar farm that needs to take care of their thing. I understand the concern about subsidies or taxpayer money funding some of those projects and making it, but that's not under our control whatsoever, how they operate and function thereafter. We've approved the development permit, and what they produce or don't produce after that is not.
Excuse me, but I think there should be a contact between you and AS, whatever
I think the specific solar farm that you're speaking of is actually outside of our county even. It's in Cypress County. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
That cutoff point.
Yeah, and we've seen it, but it actually isn't in our county, and I think once those are established, it's really up to the operator. I'm not familiar with anything else that goes into it.
Yeah, okay. Figured I'd ask the question anyway.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's what we're here for. With respect to the second matter, Jeff, do you want to speak to the NRCB first, and then I'll take the highway and I'll take the animal control bylaw?
Sure. With regards to the feedlot to the north of Tilly, we have received complaints in the past. We did receive some correspondence at the time. They did expand some pens out behind. We were in contact with the NRCB, and again, you know, we are going to talk about another overarching regulator that approves confined feeding operations in the province of Alberta, and that is the Natural Resources Conservation Board. In our contact with the NRCB, they did not classify the expansion of the operation north of Tilly to be something that would fall under the purview of the NRCB because it wasn't a feedlot, and I'm going to say they said it was a backgrounding operation where they don't house animals full-time and they're in and out, and because of this operation, it did not meet the criteria to be regulated by the NRCB. So there was no application, there was no formal advertisement of such an application because they confirmed that it does not meet the requirements to be classified as a confined feeding operation.
Looks like a confined feeding operation to me. There's thousands of cattle there. That's confined operation.
Okay, thanks. Holly, you have a comment?
Just the definition is based on when you have your cattle in the feedlot. That's the definition. So you can't, if you to be a backgrounder, you can't have cattle in the feedlot between the months of June, what was June? But yeah, for a couple of months, as long as you don't have cattle then you're not a confined feeding operation. So that's the general line they go on.
There's cattle 12 months of the year there, so yes. There's never any point that there's no cattle being fed there. Because there's semis coming out of there June, July, August, September, October, November, all around the year.
Okay, thank you. Mark, you get your mic on.
So with respect to the road that operation accesses, that is a 3-digit highway for council's information. That is under the jurisdiction of Alberta Transportation. Volker Steven would be the primary contact for that. We've always received calls from ratepayers, so I can't explain why you didn't get through between 8 and 8:30 or any other time. Apologies in that respect. I'm not aware of any issues with the phone system. Our municipal enforcement officers, community peace officers are capable of enforcing on 3-digit highways, but Volker Steven definitely has a 24-hour hotline for emergencies and hazards and stuff. 1-888 VS Roads is the number. Their local office is just out by Highway 36 there and Highway 1. Otherwise, our officers could actually go out and find those things too. It's generally up to the offender to clean up their debris, or if it's hazardous enough, somebody takes action and the bill gets sent back to whoever they tracked it down being. In that case, it would be pretty obvious, but that's how we would go about resolution with that situation. Is once we are aware, we would either handle it ourselves or we would hand it off to the appropriate authority. But for education, for ratepayers and stuff, those 3-digit highways, it's really Volker, Steven, and Alberta Transportation. Get my breath.
Thanks, Roberta. Just come on to the mic.
I thought I could speak to one thing that you mentioned, sir, is that when you phoned and you phoned and you phoned from 8 till 8:30, that's my area of responsibility is the phone system. And we recently made a change. So it's possible that that change hindered that. So just wanted to let you know, I've heard your concern and we'll be looking into that. So thank you.
Thanks, Roberta. I will speak a little bit to the matter of dust or debris or from feedlots or from enterprises that are happening in the county. I mean, I think council and our staff try to work with landowners. I don't know landowners who deliberately try to deposit mud on the highway, but it kind of happens when it's wet, as you know. And I, I'm familiar with couple of sites where that back onto 3-numbered highways or county roads or highways, it's almost the same thing other than areas of jurisdiction. But typically, I mean, we try to clean it off when it happens, but sometimes if it happens in the middle of the night, and we've got probably the perfect storm right now for exactly what you're talking about, because if somebody drove onto the highway in the evening and with mud on their tires and overnight it drops to 10 degrees or minus 10 degrees, you're going to get frozen mud on the highway. And it's, I mean, it's a matter of timing sometimes. And I expect you appreciate that too. I mean, we also appreciate the fact that there are people doing things to generate economy in the area. So it's always a balancing act to try to work with people on that. So thanks for your comments.
Can I respond to the animal control?
Yes, please.
Okay, so animal control bylaw. Right now, the proposed bylaw is based off of complaints from citizens. We have dealt with council had still on now. Council had dealt with over 30 head of cattle in a multi-lot residential subdivision. Oh, you did it, didn't you? Baby.
Just found out what I can do, so just, yeah.
Over 30 head of cattle in a multi-lot residential subdivision where other people living in that multi-lot residential subdivision weren't appreciative of the agricultural lifestyle. With that, council did very well to give an extended time frame because it was found to be at the beginning of winter. You just don't relocate 30 head of cattle with reasonable food, care, housing, shelter, whatever you need in that kind of situation. We've also heard from a multi-lot residential subdivision in proximity to Brooks, but a mile away from, where other livestock have been housed on the property and the neighbors are not supportive of that either. We've had concerns iterated of the odor from poor manure management of a landowner in Rolling Hills within the hamlet that municipal enforcement has had to respond to in a couple of instances. So the questions put forth in the survey, which received 150 respondents over the month-long period that we advertised, vary greatly for council's information and for those in attendance and online. And to compile this to find how everybody can cohabitate together between the agricultural lifestyle and the urban lifestyle, because yes, we're a rural municipality, but we have urban components to our municipality, is what we're trying to find. And really it's a matter of, if you want to have animals, how do you find yourself living with your neighbors, especially when you're in their area of urbanization, because in the same time, you've got urban people moving to the rural areas, not understanding the rural lifestyle of things, and they're struggling to adapt or accept that, where agricultural equipment perhaps operates until 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, whenever you can be out haying and getting your crops off. But I'm trying to sleep because I work 8 to 5. Well, that's not how agriculture works. So as back in 2019, we attempted the urban chicken bylaw to afford residents in urban areas an opportunity to self-sustain themselves with some poultry and whatnot, with egg-laying hens, not roosters. We did miss a component, admittedly, to council in the existing animal control bylaw, of which this was the urban chicken bylaw that was drafted, that did have a provision that if you had more than 1 acre, you could basically have whatever you wanted, which afforded people to have roosters. So trying to get rid of 2 bylaws, have 1 bylaw, and find what fits where and how. And 150 responses. Some of the questions were yes and no. A lot of them also asked for follow-up if you had comments, to bring that back to council in a meaningful way without feeling the people that responded that their responses were manipulated in any way or anything like that. To bring any irregularities before council is what I have to do before I can bring second reading back. But we want to make sure that people are getting along, and the people that have taken the time to come in and meet with me, which we've been very open, officers Nesbitt and Leaks have been placing the phone calls to those people that have asked to be followed up with. I think they've got about 30 left, so we've made really good progress in touching base with people. We're getting there. And from that solicited feedback, we will present proposed amendments in the second reading of the bylaw that we believe will satisfy the comments that have been brought back. There's always going to be some one-offs of who has a firm belief of X or who has a firm belief of Y. But ultimately the 10 have to decide how the community is going to cohabitate. And really, I guess that's my point. We've considered what other municipalities like us are doing in the urban environments, the rural environments. We've looked at urban bylaws, we've looked at rural bylaws. Going from 3 dogs to 4 dogs seems to be more of a norm, but there's a lot of feedback saying no, 3 is more than enough for people to manage. They're not the best at managing animals, but I know that there are good people that take care of their animals extremely well. Other cases, not so much, and you can find extremes at both ends. So it's trying to find what everybody's doing and then what works with ourselves, and ultimately council makes a decision. So that's where that is at. And I really hope that we can find the right mix of things for our residents that doesn't have too much government overreach, but there are also other things from levels of government above us that also dictate what we can and cannot get into as well. And sometimes that's not as well known by the general public as what we would hope. So that's the response on my part to that anyway. So
I just have one more thing, and it's basically towards our campground where I've been trying to plant trees. And every year, these young kids that come to mow the grass just mow them down. Even they're staked, they mow them down. And I give up. I've gotten trees replaced by the county. The following, plant them in the spring when I get them, and before you know it, there's none left because they cut them off. And you cut them off when they're just saplings. A couple of times, they don't come back. And I give up. I lost all my trees, all my effort down that whole stretch. And I don't know what else to do. Because it's a lot of time and effort on my part that I do for free, and it's just destroyed.
Just a question of clarification, is that on your own land or on?
No, this is on
park,
the park.
in Kelly?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Kelly, did you? Yeah, okay.
So I just wanted to bring that up so it can be dealt with in some way that these kids understand what they got to do, and not just because they're riding a mower to ride over everything.
I did come up with another question. So have you met our Ag Services manager? He would probably support you in your efforts if you wanted to try again. I'm just saying. He's a
Well,
tree
I-
planter and
Yeah.
he protects trees. So I'm sorry that you had that experience. And thank
Definitely.
you for all the work that you did put into putting the trees in the first place. But certainly if you wanted to try again, I think Todd would be your guy and he would support you. If
Yeah.
those trees were in the right place at the right time, we'll protect them.
Okay. That's basically all I am.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. Any other questions? Please introduce yourself and the division you're from, and then welcome.
That's the test of being able to be a good witness, is it? I do remember my name, Harold Stedel from Tilly, and I have two children that own their own homes and live in Tilly and in the county and are taxpayers as well. So it's a bit of concern there. For one thing, you probably know or have heard of God. And then in the beginning, he gave mankind permission to subdue the earth. And my beef, or most point at this point in time, is solar panels don't subdue the earth. They kind of wreck it instead. And to go along with that, any farmland that's taken out of use is kind of like a waste, in my opinion. I grew up on a farm and started farming till I lost my shirt, and I quit before I lost my pants. So I'd just like to read a little bit about, it's taken from a news out. Anybody know Danielle Smith? That's kind of one of those questions, right? She speaks here. We are a natural gas province. Smith says Alberta needs power plants, not wind and solar. Anybody understand that? I'm supportive of solar and wind projects where they make sense, which is important. There are some places it makes more sense. Like, to me, solar panels out in space and being to the power stations would make a lot less clatter for us here, and it would be more direct to the sun. It would be much more efficient, but common sense and a few other things. Anyways, but I can tell you from conversations with people in my own community that putting solar panels on prime agricultural land does not make sense, Smith responded. So that's where I think that should go.
Okay, thank you. I think most of us were, if I recognize the speech, we're in the room when she made that speech to the Rural Municipalities Association or part of it. So thank you. I didn't hear the question other than whether we'd heard of Danielle Smith, and yes, we have. So that's good. Thanks, Harold. Any further questions? Seeing none at this point, it's 1:45, 1:45. So this question period can go on till 2:30, but I'm going to suggest that we go back to some of our agenda items, and we will periodically check back if there are other questions. Again, thank you to everyone who came in to ask questions this afternoon. We appreciate that. So let's move to 8.1 on our agenda, which is Bylaw 2049-23, Land Use Amendment 004, southwest of 42318, west of 4, Ag General to Industrial General, second and third reading. Do you have any comments for us, Maria or Jeff? No? Okay. Thank you. That was the subject of our public hearing this morning. Does council have direction for us with regard to second and then potentially third reading? Holly, please.
I'd like to motion second reading.
Okay, we have a motion to approve second reading. All in favor of that motion, please indicate. Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Similarly, item 8.1.2, motion for bylaw 2049-23, third reading. Greg, please.
Yeah, I'd like to make that motion.
We have a motion on the floor. All in favor of that motion, please indicate. Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Maria. Let's move to item number 8.2, bylaw 2045-23, non-residential municipal tax incentive, second reading. Matt, do you want to take us through that?
I can introduce that. So we had incorporated some amendments at first reading. You've got the updated copy in front of you. This bylaw was not as popular for feedback as the animal control bylaw. I think it's really encouraging when we get feedback from our ratepayers to make sure we're getting our bylaws right. This one registered just over a dozen responses with mixed views on the matter. That feedback has been attached for council. You've had a chance to review it. Administration is not recommending any additional edits at this time to the bylaw. We have recommended second reading. If that goes through, we would then push this up to legal for a legal review to make sure it's going to accomplish what we intend for it to accomplish, and we'd bring it back for third reading in May.
Thanks, Matt. I think that clarifies procedure for us too. Some variations on some of these bylaws, so appreciate that. Is anyone prepared to make a motion, Neil?
I'd like to move that bylaw.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor, please indicate. That's carried. Thank you. Motion. Yeah, that's right. We need to do that first. Let's go to item number 11.2. 11.1, I'm sorry, I'm reading here. Approval of the 2023 final budget. Stephanie, please.
Hello. All right, so I'm here requesting council's approval for the 2023 final budget. I was here back in December where you guys approved the interim budget. And since then, we've been able to take some final numbers and put them all together. Some of the numbers that we finalized include the tax revenue based on actual assessment and requisition amounts. We've been able to tie in some grant revenues based on the qualifying projects. We've updated the senior school and designated industrial property requisition amounts. We've incorporated additional spending approved by council since the beginning of the year. So those were motions that you passed during your council meetings. We brought in carry forward project numbers for projects that weren't completed in 2022. And then we had some additional costs come in for some additional spending required for function 32, specifically for the grading, the crossings improvements at the CP rail crossings, 90.27 in a total amount of $150,000. And then there were some hamlet water distribution valve repairs and replacements identified by Cole for function 41, or NRSD I should say, in the amount of $216,000. Final budget, the big highlights include, we're looking at an increase in property taxes of million, which will be about 3.26% higher than compared to the 2022 budget. We are looking at an increase in expenses of about 2.7 million, over and above 8.85% over the 2022 budget. There's some staffing costs increase, some increases in transfers to other organizations under your ICF agreements with the different municipalities. We're looking at doing a gravel crush this year of $2 million. Total capital expending is going to come into about 23.8 million. Yeah, that if you want to look, there's some appendices that have been attached. And this isn't very nice to look at. Appendix D will show kind of where all the numbers will come into play for the different departments and what the distribution of property tax levy will be. And what the changes were from when where you passed the interim budget back in December to what the numbers are today that I am presenting to you for approval.
Okay, thank you. Ready to take questions if there are some, or are we waiting for Holly, go ahead, please.
I was just wondering, did we have to make any increase based on the fact that municipalities don't have to cover the RCMP retroactive pay increase? Does that affect our budget at all?
No, it will not.
Okay, Neil, please.
Yeah, you were mentioning there's a 3.2% tax increase.
Actually, what that means is that it's going over, the increase total will be 3.2%, 3.26% over the 2022 budgets, that we're increasing our revenue by that much.
Yeah, I get that. But can you break that down? Like, where's that 3.2 coming from? Like, say I had an acreage last year, my tax bill was 4,200. Does it mean it's 3% higher this year?
I can take that. That's a good question. We are in the fortunate position, and Shannon's going to get to address your questions a little bit here in a little bit. We had growth last year, right? So that's new buildings showing up, all pipelines get their tax holiday, so I won't use that line. I believe in Shannon's RFD, we were around $100 million in growth. What we're proposing when we get to the tax rate conversation. So yes, revenues are up 3.2%. With that growth, we were actually able to become more competitive on our tax rates. And there was actually a decrease as well on the school tax rates as well. So combined tax rate decrease for, let me get this in front of me, non-residential overall down 3.23%. Farmland, when you combine the increase in the mill rate with the decrease in the school tax, is up 5.13%. Residential, we'll see an overall decrease in tax rates of 6.26%. And our final category, small business, the rate is down 3.32%. So it's kind of the best math you can hope for. You get growth. You've got new people contributing to the pot, and it reduces the tax rates for everybody else who have been here. There is, it should be noted, there is that increase in farmland. We had for a number of years been increasing the farmland tax rate, and the goal is for that rate to be equivalent to the non-residential rate. You're likely to get there next year because the non-residential rate has come down. We've been increasing that by 0.75 year over year. If council recalls, we paused that increase last year to accommodate for inflationary increases. Yeah, it's overall a good news story. And I will point out, we are one of the only municipalities that also offers a discount for are good ratepayers who settle their tax bill by June 15th. It's currently at 2.5%, so not a huge amount, but every bit helps.
Thanks, Matt. Neil?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely excellent. We just had the financial report that we listened to this afternoon. And to bring farmland up a little bit, don't forget that there was, this is off the top of my head, but I know it's close. There was $1.5 billion worth of farm equity just settled onto this area because of land prices in the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years. So that's actually minimal compared to what the stuff is worth. I think that's very fair.
Thanks, Neil. You want to respond?
Just a little more context in terms of, why are you increasing the farmland tax rate? How does that possibly make any sense? When we first set down that road, it's got to be 6 or 7 years ago, we looked at what ag services budget is and what farmland taxes brought in, and we were about $1 million short. The last 3 years, we're averaging about 640,000 short. So we've made progress, and the point was, you're going to see in a moment when Shannon shows her little pie charts how reliant the county is on non-residential taxes. We're trying to get to a more sustainable point with our farmland guys putting the bill for ag services. If the rug gets pulled out from under us, like it was threatened to be in 2019 by the province changing the assessment model review, you've got less of a shock potentially to your system.
Thanks, Matt. I appreciate that. I also want to refer to the excellent report we had from our auditors earlier today and their recognition of the good situation that we're in the county, but also the good format of the books and the fact that the presenting and the reporting is good, and compliment you, Stephanie. Thank you to you and everyone who helps in your team to present this as information. I think it's something we're proud of and pleased to see things moving forward positively from a reporting perspective too. So thank you for that. Are there other questions? Holly, go ahead.
I'm just looking at the tangible capital assets, and this year the increase is a lot. I'm assuming it's because we are buying 6th graders or that kind of thing. They're fairly expensive. But the proceeds on disposal is only supposed to be 300, and I'm kind of curious if we're going to be selling all our graders, why that wouldn't be higher. Are graders not worth more than that?
Matt, you probably...
Yeah, so we are conservative when we budget for revenues. I'm pretty sure each of those graders we're banking on receiving at least 50,000. So when we receive those proceeds, they go into the vehicles, machinery, and equipment reserve. So they go to offset future purchases. But yeah, you're right. We're likely low on the resale value. Hopefully we get a whole lot more than 50K for those things.
I'll take one home for that price.
You've got a conflict of interest now. Okay. Any other questions for Stephanie or regarding the finances? Neil, go ahead.
Just one more. We always decide to do things that aren't in budget. How much money is available in this budget to do those kind of things? Like, I could think of 10 right now, but.
Matt, you want to speak to that?
Well, there's things in the budget that haven't been fully funded. So, the Kinbrook connection pathway, we're still looking for a fundraising commitment there. Yes, we can always entertain a council motion to, entertain another project. What I would caution council on is you already have a plan. It's the budget. It's largely the budget that was approved in December. You have staff who are busy in the trenches executing those plans. So depending on what the item is you want to add to the spending list, capacity may or may not be available to execute on getting the project done.
I didn't have anything in mind, but I do know we bought 6 graders at the drop of the hat. and that, it's all good stuff. Things come along and a budget can be restraining, but I just wondered if there was a slush fund, because I don't understand this 100%. If there was money tucked away here and there in places in this budget.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So our slush fund, we call the stabilization fund, and it's not really about slush at all. It's really about the county's vision and mission of providing stability. But there is a stabilization fund of $5 million. You know, we have an annual operating of 30 million. So you're around, you know, do the math percentage wise. I need a calculator. That's a potential funding source. We also have, we're in a really good spot in terms of our ability to replace existing vehicles, machinery, and equipment. Last year, when council made the wise decision to buy one more grader than what Terry had proposed, you just saved yourselves a couple $100,000, is my understanding. So you bought graders at 540,000 plus minus, and they're now going at 7. We probably should have bought 7 or 8. Yeah. But we, you know, to speak to the auditor's presentation this morning, you look at any of the financial indicator graphs, and the county really is in a fortunate position where your savings are way above the pack, your debt is way below the pack, and your taxation of the economy is below the pack. I don't know that there's any better scenario than what you find yourselves in currently. At the end of 2022, and this has been a long road as well, the county finally filled the gap on setting aside enough money to replace the assets which have been amortized. And I'll test your memory, but go back to interim budget presentation, and there were 2 bridge files on the screen. One was on the books for $6,000 is what we had paid for it back in the day, being replaced today for $385,000. So we have, you know, when I say we've socked away what we've amortized, we have 6, and we're spending $385,000 to replace existing bridges. We're in a real fortunate spot, but we're not to a spot where we could replace everything today if it all failed. But we're in a real flexible spot to answer your question in more words than I needed to.
That's cool.
Thanks. Matt, Greg, please.
Just a question with respect to recreational funding. I know we have a recreational surplus, and this would be in areas where, let's say, if a municipality wanted to, or an area wanted to build something, 25% would come from somewhere from the county if we approve that from council. Where does that come from, and how much do we have there that's available for rec funding? And my second part is that it really sounds like, as far as a council, that we do have a significant surplus in our system. Is there a danger moving forward with provincial legislation or something like that that could affect that surplus?
Matt?
Well, I can't speak to what the province is going to do. I think back to the direction they went with the school boards, and you know, told the school boards grants are off. You need to start burning up your surplus. So potentially, I'd love to be in a position where the province, forget about MSI, forget about all the effort we put into local government fiscal framework. Forget about my favorite grant program they had was disaster recovery. We spent about $20,000 repairing flood damage at Emerson Bridge Park. We had to submit 100% of the invoices, and we got a visit from 3 folks from Edmonton for accountability on that. Like, the province is not efficient, if I can say that, managing their grant programs. If they would give local governments the capacity to financially fund their obligations, to heck with the grant. So I'm not sure on the risk side of things from the provincial side of things. What were your other questions, Councillor Screever?
Recreation.
Oh yeah, so recreation, council does have the recreation facility improvement funding policy. We've seen a few applications come in for project support under that, Rolling Hills most recently for campground and their ice plant, thank you. So under that, there are different funding categories, and that's where something like a new build would be considered by council for funding to come out of the recreation fund, which has 5.89 million in today. Some of that has been committed. So, you know, Bassano was in here advertising, hey, pool liner is going to be replaced this year. Your share is 150,000. So there are commitments coming out of that, but there are funds set aside for recreation.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, or are we ready to, Todd, please?
Sorry, I had a question online.
Okay, go ahead.
Which hasn't happened before. This is just a question about,
Is it about the budget?
It is. It is. It's about this very exact conversation. It was actually a question that Neil had asked, and the fellow didn't hear the answer or missed it.
Go ahead.
So yes or no to, I think, Neil's question about the tax bill increase being the same or 3.2% higher for the next bill.
It will be higher if you're farmland by about 5.13%. It'll be lower for non-res, residential, and small business, depending on your assessment, right? So it's always caveat, it depends, because everybody's property is unique. But our tax rates go down in 3 categories and up in 1 for farmland.
Okay, thank you. Kelly, go ahead.
I would like to make a motion to approve the 2023 budget as presented.
Thank you. All in favor, please indicate. That is carried. Thank you. Thank you again, Stephanie. Appreciate your good work. Let's move to 11.2, disposal of public property. Oh, Lane, come on up. Sorry, Shannon. Okay. 11.2.
Yeah, this item won't take too much time unless there is a number of questions. Going back to 10 years ago, just shortly after we moved into this building, council went through the process of reviewing all of the land that the county owns, and council at the time provided direction as to what should be happening with some of the properties that were surplus. Some of those that were identified for disposal were public utility lots that had been taken through the development process and were used primarily for irrigation within those developments. We've been able to sell. There's been 4 of them that have been disposed of, and this is the 5th one that is now before council. We're wanting permission to go ahead and proceed with transferring title to an association, which represents the homeowners in the Mortensen subdivision. This matter is really before council because it's a formality that's required in the policy. Anytime there's a disposal of land, council has to approve that through motion.
Thank you, Lane. Are there questions? Seeing none, we have a recommendation. Someone have a direction for us? Neil?
I move we let Lane go ahead and sell it.
As per the recommendation. Okay. Lynette?
Is it being sold or just turned over?
In this situation, it's being turned over to a nonprofit organization that's going to have ownership of it, and it will be for a nominal amount of $1.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any further questions? All in favor of the motion that we proceed, please indicate. That's carried. Thank you. Thanks, Lane. Now, what's our next item here? Shannon. No. Oh, just, okay. Okay. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, so for 11.3, cancel, reschedule upcoming meetings, April 17th, Committee of the Whole. The call for agenda items went out, nothing's been received. I would recommend that council entertain canceling the meeting on the 17th for Committee of the Whole.
Holly, please.
Would there be any merit to have some discussion instead about items that have been brought forward? Like the MDP has been kind of a hotly discussed item, or the animal bylaw. Is there a merit to having that some time to discuss that or not? I'm just throwing it out there.
Matt,
I'd suggest you keep the MDP to the
public.
Forum. Existing process.
Still, it's a public forum. I'm just thinking it takes, we try to free up time here sometimes. I'm just wondering, if that's an option.
Yeah, what's the timeline for it coming back? Do you recall off the top of your head? Because it's been circulated internally. Everybody's had their chance to kind of give their comments. It's now out to the public for review. Those comments will come back. So I would suggest that council waits until those comments come back to be considered.
Do we have direction? Someone prepared to make rather than that, please?
I'll make the motion that we, what were we going to say, reschedule it or just cancel this one and go to the next one.
Okay, thank you. All in favor of the motion, please indicate. That's carried. Thank you. Okay, we'll keep. Anticipation is everything. Oh, I'm sorry. 11.4, Citizen and Junior Citizen of the Year, request for gift basket. Ariana, please.
All right. Citizen of the Junior Citizen of the Year, the date of that event has been changed to April 21st. They typically request a gift basket from us. The RFD details it. We've been doing this every year between 2010 to 2019. Obviously, there hasn't been a gala for the past couple of years, so they're back. I'm just looking for a motion whether council would entertain donating a gift basket in the amount of, we've done $100 in the past, but you could change it. That's all.
I just got past the baton, so go ahead, Holly.
I will make a motion that we support the Grasslands Regional FCS Citizen and Junior Citizen of the Year Awards, and that a gift basket amount of $100 be donated on behalf of the County of Newell.
Ariana, just before I call the question to council, given the increase in pricing, is the $100 adequate? I heard maybe a suggestion there. It's been $100 for 10 years now or better.
I believe so, yeah.
I'm wondering, Holly.
I will amend my motion to $125.
We have a motion. Any further conversation on the motion?
Can the budget handle it?
Okay, no further conversation, comments, input. Call the question. All in favor of the motion for $125 gift basket? No other, if you did, yeah. Neil? Hello. Good. That is carried. Little bit further. Shannon, did you want to speak today? Okay, we're
No.
moving along to the admin. Sorry? 11.5. We are on to 11.5, everyone. Red Bull Outliers. There's a request for a decision here, and Ariana, you're going to handle that for us? Oh, Matt will take it?
Yeah, you bet. So hopefully council had a chance to read the RFD and click the YouTube link and see our region highlighted by Red Bull. Pretty awesome videos and pretty awesome promotion of the Badlands. A letter of support was provided for the 2022 event. They're coming back, which is a great news story for 2023. Right now, they're only looking for a letter of support. I bet you they'll show up at joint services and look for funding commitment there. But that's the recommendation there is that we provide a letter of support.
And just to share with you, that's where the funding has come through in the past, I'm going to say 3 years, I think they've been coming. So, Greg, you want to make a motion?
I'll make that motion for the letter of support.
All in favor of the motion? That's carried. I'll pass this back to Arnold.
Thank you, Kelly. Let's move to item number 11.6, functions of council. Are there any requests for functions of council? Kelly, go ahead.
Maybe a point of clarification. Was Jeff Mowat already approved as an FOC? It was, okay. I didn't make note in my day timer. Okay. I think that's the only question I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. Are there any others? Polly, please.
I was going to do this last night, but by the time I was done with the budget, I was too tired and went to bed. There's been a number of emails that have come through for requests for paying it, pay attention to this and this online and that online. Was there anything in there that we should be doing as a function of council? Anyone know? It's just been a lot of stuff coming through. Or maybe just my computer, I don't know.
I'm not aware of anything. Is anyone else response? I think we're good. Lynette, please.
The only thing I saw that was local that's coming up is the air show or air in June, the beginning of June, air tour. Yes, they were looking for some help.
June 6th, 7th air tour.
Yeah.
Looking for volunteers too to help with breakfast out there.
Oh, out at the airport? Flying, okay. Anybody have any? Oh, Kelly, go ahead.
So that again would fall into the volunteer program where you want to get involved with the community and what's going on. I'm not sure who's on the airport commission, but one of our counselors probably would be, it would be part of his function of council. But the rest of us, we would volunteer towards the effort if Dan shoulder tapped us and needed help with something. We're there for you, Dan.
Thanks, Kelly. Any other function, anything else? Seeing none, we'll move on. Let's pardon me. Let's move back to 8.3. Bylaw 2053-23 tax rates for 2023, first reading. Shannon Biet, welcome.
I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you. I don't know if waiting made me more nervous or less nervous. We'll see.
Anticipation.
Yeah, I struggle. Okay, so I am here looking for first reading. Typically, we separate this out and do second and third reading the next meeting, the last one in April. So a lot of the stuff is already, we kind of touched on it. So the assessed values, increased quite a bit this year, 230 million over last year's. 168 of that was growth and 62.9 million was inflation. That is outlined in my appendix. The pie charts that we talked about earlier. So the municipal tax kind of shows you the breakdown of who's paying what and how much. Neil, you wanted to know what farmland, so that is your blue wedge in there. Residential's red, so you can kind of see the breakdown in there. Maybe you can't because I didn't zoom in very good for you guys. Paving tax, we've been doing that consistently for a number of years. So the breakdown's in there, but you can see what we've been collecting. And that's across the board. So I do get quite a few questions about that, like why do I have to pay taxes? But on paving, because my road in front of my house is gravel, but everyone pays taxes. We all contribute to that pot. Let's see. Policing, we did discuss that a little bit. So that's the breakdown again on who's contributing the most to that. Education, we talked about that, went down. Anything else? Real dollars. So our tax rates for like residential, so it says it went down by 6.2%. So that percent is the difference of the tax rates. There's additional math in there. So I did a comparison to last year's. So you had real numbers. So on a $300,000 assessment, the taxes would be $1,984 and change, which is down from last year. So the difference is a reduction of $132 in total tax. So that gives you that number. I talked to Kevin this morning and asked him for a assessment value for like the pristine best pivot corner that you could have. And the adjustment for the tax would result in an extra $31.90 on that parcel. So that percent increase seems like a lot, but in actual dollars, it's not, right? So that helps you just put it into perspective, I guess, the numbers and stuff that we're looking at for that. So yeah, I think that's all I've got that we haven't really went over.
Mike, or Neil, just turn the mic on, please.
It's only a high percentage because it was a low number to start with. Right?
Right, yes.
Like it's not much money.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thanks. Shannon, any other questions? You have more to report, or that's basically the report? Thank you. That looks good. Any further questions? Kelly.
Shannon, remind me what grants in lieu, it's a small pie, and it's on the revenue side, of course. Grants in lieu are taxes from?
That would be like what?
Grants in lieu is provincial or federal, and the province a few years ago, if you remember, they gave themselves a tax break of 50%, and they're still paying 50% to their tax bill. So if you want to be a taxpayer, you want to be the province paying taxes. So they don't call it their tax bill. They call it, we're giving you a grant in lieu of property taxes, and we're only giving you 50 cents on the dollar. Doesn't impact the county largely because we have so few properties, but I imagine a city like Edmonton, that probably hurts.
So that would be on properties like a courthouse, RCMP building, those types of, not real, CDC South. Okay, thank you. It's a very small wedge. I like the visual. I really appreciate the visuals because it points to who are paying the taxes. One thing the pies do show to me is how much high tech we have in machinery and equipment in this county. That's a large piece of pie. So that tells me that we have a lot of high-end business in our county. Would that be a fair comment?
Yeah, so that's like, this is what's the revenue side, right? Too. So, right, yeah. So it's not assessment pies, right? Like this is the tax dollar. So who's shouldering that, right?
Good point.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm looking at the revenue, which does equate to the assessment, but in a different manner. Okay, I will look at the assessment to answer that question for sure. Thank you.
Okay, any further questions? Seeing none, are someone prepared to make a motion that we approve bylaw 2053-23 for first reading? Lynette, please.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. All in favor, please indicate. That's carried. Thank you. Pardon? Thank you, Shannon. Oh, you want to see it. It's a comfortable chair. Yeah, thank you. Okay, we're very close to the end of our official question period time. Are there any other official questions or anyone want to pose a question this afternoon? Nothing online, Todd?
No, we bounced around all day for people viewing. This morning we had about 20. We've been kind of in and around 15 people viewing all afternoon. So I think that's not too bad for people midday. Might want to put a reminder out for anybody for the 6 o'clock one tonight at some point in time. But otherwise, no questions.
Okay, thank you. And none from the floor here. Thank you for everyone who tuned in this afternoon. And we'll, as Todd indicated, remind you that there will be another question period, same format, except less other activity at the same place, either here or online at 6 o'clock this evening. So thank you. With that, we'll move on to item number, where are we here? 13.1. Pardon me. Okay, request for decision. We've had some informal discussions in the past. We have prepared a nomination package to nominate someone from our county to the Canadian Agriculture Hall of Fame. There's a recommendation to council that county council nominates a candidate to the Canadian Agriculture Hall of Fame with additional spending of $5,000 approved from the Economic Development Public Relations account to cover the cost of a painted and framed portrait if the candidate is selected for induction to the Hall of Fame. Anyone prepared to make a motion or go ahead, Holly?
I would like to make that motion as outlined in the RFG.
Okay. Any questions or further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, please indicate. That's carried. Thank you. Information items. We have a number of information items as per our agenda. Is there anything else that we need to discuss as part of the agenda before we move in camera? Go ahead, Lynette, please.
Well, in the information items, the AUC power plant approval, that's already been through council, like before us. I'm not remembering doing anything with one by the.
Yeah, so this is AUC decision. Next step will be the development permit to come in for MPC to consider. Yeah, this one had been advertised, man, a long time ago, actually. It's kind of been a long road for them, but expect to see a development permit cross the desk.
Okay, thank you. Ollie, please.
I had one question under the payment register. There was a payment to Insight Canada for around $43,000. I didn't know what Insight Canada was.
Insight Canada supplies our tablets. So that's 21 tablets there. If I'm looking at the right one. What was the total amount you were looking at there, Councillor Johnson?
$42,986. It's alphabetical under I for insight.
All right, now that I've got my I's and U's figured out here, yeah, Surface Pros refresh. So 21 at $1,600 a piece, plus the keyboards at $269. That's what Insight's all about. Tech.
Thank you. Oh, Lynette, please.
It's a very small amount, but I'm just curious. Garbage collection for 6 gun rentals in Patricia for $89. Is that the fire hall or?
Now, wait a minute. We've had this question before, right? I should know the answer for 6 guns. Yeah. Probably because Councillor Johnson has asked the question in the past. Yeah.
Okay, any other questions or anything we need to deal with relative to our information session? Or pardon me, information provision. Seeing none, I'll suggest we take 5 minutes and then move in camera, eh? Or 3 minutes, or however many we need. Thank you. Thank you. We've come out of camera. Greg, have you got a comment?
Yeah, sure. Discussions about the pathway, the Kinbrook connection pathway. We are at a point now where the project is 95% ready to go. We're ready to move on tendering, and this is a project that it is best to get it off our plates, get it moving for the benefit of the entire county. And I would like to make a motion if that's available there, Arnold.
Yep, I'm willing to entertain a motion.
Okay. So the motion that I'd like to propose is that council directs administration to put the Kinbrook connection pathway out to tender with any funding shortfall up to the 2023 final budgeting amount funded from the recreational fund.
Thank you. Any discussion? Lynette, please.
They're going to still continue to sell bricks? Like, are they doing a thing at the trade show and stuff again?
They're not at the trade fair, not that I know of anyway. But yes, this ongoing promotion of community involvement, both on the corporate side and the individual side, will be ongoing. And we've got still a long way to go, but this makes it that project is going to get done.
Okay, thanks. Any further comments or questions? Ready for the question? All in favor of the motion, please indicate. Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. I will, with that, if seeing no other business that we need to take care of, we'll adjourn the meeting. Oh, pardon me, recess the meeting because we are reconvening at 6 o'clock for a question period. So thank you all for your attendance today.